The champagne bubbled in the flute, and the light from the chandeliers danced across the crystals, creating an almost magical shimmer all around. I smiled, genuinely happy for Mariana and Ricardo. The ceremony had been beautiful, moving, and the reception was impeccable. Soft music filled the hall, whilst guests circulated, chatting animatedly. I felt at ease, despite knowing few people besides the bride and groom. Mariana and I had been friends since university, and even with the distance, our friendship had always remained strong. I was standing near the dessert table, admiring the wedding cake, a work of art in fondant, when I heard her. A sharp voice, laden with disdain, shattering the festive atmosphere like a crystal vase crashing to the floor. "You don't belong here." I turned slowly, meeting the cold, appraising gaze of an elegant woman, dressed in a designer gown that screamed exclusivity. She looked me up and down with an expression of pure contempt. She was one of the bride's family's closest friends, from what I'd gathered during the introductions. In that instant, time seemed to stop. Her words reverberated in my mind, echoing the insecurity I had long tried to bury. That place was the celebration of two people's love whom I admired, and I felt honored to have been invited to share that special moment. But suddenly, doubt invaded me. Did I really belong there? Was I out of place? An intruder in a world that wasn't mine? The humiliation paralyzed me. I felt my face flush, a lump in my throat preventing me from responding. Words jumbled together, and I felt small, vulnerable, exposed. For a moment, I wished to evaporate, disappear, become invisible. I needed to get out of there, to breathe. My feet seemed glued to the floor, but I forced a weak smile and tried to move away, murmuring an excuse that probably no one heard. That's when, in the midst of that whirlwind of emotions, Ricardo, the groom, approached. He saw my expression, noticed my discomfort, and with a gesture I'll never forget, he handed me the microphone. What did he expect me to do? And what would I do with that unexpected opportunity? The weight of the microphone in my hand was almost palpable. I looked at Ricardo, searching for some clue in his face. He smiled gently, an encouraging smile that seemed to say, "I trust you." That gesture, so simple, broke some of the ice that had formed around me. But the insecurity was still strong. What would I say? To whom? Why was he doing this? My eyes swept across the hall. The music had stopped, and an expectant silence hung in the air. All eyes were turned to me, curious, some even amused. The woman who had humiliated me stared with a challenging expression, as if saying, "Let's see what you'll do now." I took a deep breath, trying to control the trembling in my hands. Adrenaline coursed through my veins, making me dizzy. I'd never been one for public speaking, never liked being the center of attention. But in that moment, I knew I couldn't simply run away. I couldn't let that woman define me, let her words diminish me. I looked at Ricardo again, and he nodded, giving me one last silent encouragement. I closed my eyes for a moment, searching through my memories, my experiences, for something that could transform that moment of humiliation into something more, something significant, something that would show who I really was. When I opened my eyes, the chandelier lights seemed brighter, the silence deeper, and with a voice still a bit shaky, I began to speak. "Good evening, everyone," I began, my voice still wavering, but gaining strength with each word. "I'm Mariana's friend, and I'm very happy to be here today, celebrating her and Ricardo's love." I felt a slight tremor in my hands, but forced myself to continue. "First of all, I want to thank Ricardo for this unexpected opportunity. I confess that a few minutes ago, I was feeling a bit out of place." I cast a quick glance at the woman in the designer dress, who stared at me with crossed arms and an even more defiant expression. Someone told me I didn't belong here. The silence in the hall was absolute. You could hear a fork dropping on a plate, someone's discreet cough in the audience. I felt the weight of all eyes on me, but I stood firm, determined to transform that humiliation into something positive. Those words struck me, I confess, but instead of letting them defeat me, they made me reflect on what it really means to belong somewhere. And I came to the conclusion that belonging isn't about status, designer clothes, or bank accounts. Belonging is about connection, respect, love. I continued, feeling confidence grow with each sentence. "I'm not wealthy, I don't wear expensive clothes, and perhaps I don't fit the beauty standards some consider ideal. But I'm loyal. I'm a friend. I'm someone who cares about others. And that, to me, is what really matters. I paused for a moment, taking a deep breath and allowing my words to echo in the hall. I saw some people nodding, others with an empathetic look. Even the woman in the designer dress seemed a bit less hostile. I believe we all have something to offer the world, something that makes us unique and special, and we shouldn't let anyone tell us otherwise. We shouldn't allow envy, prejudice, or others' malice to stop us from shining. I embraced the microphone more firmly, feeling the audience's energy propelling me forward. So, to conclude, I'd like to propose a toast to love, to friendship, to kindness, and to the courage to be ourselves, regardless of what others think or say. I raised my champagne flute, and the entire hall followed suit. The clinking of crystals created a soft, harmonious symphony, celebrating union, diversity, and respect. I felt warmth in my chest, a sense of relief and pride. I had transformed humiliation into a powerful declaration of self-respect. But the night hadn't ended yet, and the twist was just beginning. After all, Ricardo still had something to tell me, something that would change my life forever. The champagne bubbled softly in my flute, reflecting the colored lights from the dance floor that was beginning to form. An animated buzz filled the hall, a mix of cheerful conversations and contagious laughter. I felt immense relief, as if an enormous weight had been lifted from my shoulders. That impromptu speech, that declaration of self-respect, freed me from an insecurity that had haunted me for ages. Ricardo approached with a radiant smile on his face. Mariana followed him, her eyes brimming with emotion. "You were incredible," Mariana exclaimed, hugging me tightly. "I always knew you had something special to say, but you exceeded all my expectations. You saved the night," Ricardo added, with a sincere tone. "I saw what happened. I saw how she treated you, and I couldn't let that pass. You didn't deserve that." I felt tears threatening to fall, but I held back. This moment was for celebration, not sadness. "Thank you," I said, my voice choked. "Thank you for giving me this opportunity, for believing in me." Ricardo held my hand with a determined look. "Actually," he said, "the night isn't over yet, and I have one more request for you." He paused, took a deep breath, and continued. "I know this might seem strange, but would you accept being our wedding's godmother?" Those words struck me like lightning. Godmother? Me? It couldn't be true. I barely knew Mariana's family. I wasn't from that world. But at the same time, I felt immense joy, an indescribable honor. Ricardo and Mariana were inviting me to be part of their lives, to become part of that family. I don't know what to say," I stammered, completely surprised. I never imagined—" "We want you," Mariana interrupted, holding my other hand. "You're one of my best friends, and we want you by our side at this important moment. And after what you did today, I'm certain you'd be an incredible godmother." I looked at them both, seeing the sincerity in their eyes. They really wanted me to be part of it, to belong in that place. And in that instant, I knew the answer was yes. "Yes," I said with a radiant smile. "I accept. It would be an honor to be your wedding's godmother." Mariana hugged me again, and Ricardo gave me a friendly pat on the shoulder. I felt warmth in my chest, a sense of belonging I'd never experienced before. That wedding, which began with humiliation, had transformed into one of the most important nights of my life. But the night still held more surprises. Ricardo approached again, with a mysterious look. "I have one more thing to tell you," he whispered, "something that might change your life forever." He paused, looking me in the eyes. "Remember that project you told me about, the one you've always dreamt of realizing?" My heart began to beat faster. How did he know about that? I'd never spoken about that project with anyone except Mariana. It was an old dream, an audacious project I'd always postponed out of fear of failure. "I spoke with some investors," Ricardo continued, "and they're interested. They want to meet you, want to hear your proposal." I was speechless, my mind racing. But then Ricardo's expression shifted, becoming more serious, almost solemn. "There's something else," he said, glancing at Mariana, who nodded encouragingly. "The woman who humiliated you tonight, she's actually my aunt. Lady Victoria Ashworth." My blood ran cold. The elegant woman in the designer dress was Ricardo's aunt? She's also, Ricardo continued, his voice dropping to almost a whisper, the CEO of Ashworth Ventures, one of the largest investment firms in Europe, and she's been testing you all evening. The room seemed to spin. Testing me, I managed to croak out. At that moment, Lady Victoria herself approached, her demeanor completely transformed. The cold disdain was gone, replaced by something that looked almost like respect. "My dear," she said, extending a perfectly manicured hand. That was the most impressive display of grace under pressure I've witnessed in 20 years of business. "You see, Ricardo told me about your project, a revolutionary educational platform for underprivileged children, isn't it? But I needed to know if you had the backbone to survive in the corporate world." I stood frozen, unable to process what was happening. "The investors Ricardo mentioned?" Lady Victoria smiled, a genuine smile this time. "That's me. And after tonight, I'm not just interested in your project. I want you to lead our new social impact division. The position comes with full funding for your platform and a team of 50 developers." Mariana squeezed my hand. "We've been planning this for months," she admitted, "ever since you shared your dream with me. Ricardo's family wanted to find someone authentic, someone who wouldn't crumble under pressure, someone who could stand up for what's right even when faced with power and wealth. But the cruelty," I whispered, still reeling. "Was necessary," Lady Victoria said, though her eyes softened. "I'm truly sorry for the pain I caused, but in my world, people will try to tear you down every day. I needed to know you could not just survive it, but transform it into strength. And you did something I never expected. You turned humiliation into inspiration for an entire room." Ricardo stepped forward. "There's one more thing. The wedding you thought had already happened? That was just the rehearsal. The real ceremony is next month in our family estate in Scotland. And we'd like you to be there, not just as a guest or godmother, but as the head of our new foundation." As I stood there, champagne flute trembling in my hand, I realized that sometimes the worst moments of our lives are actually doorways to our destiny. The humiliation that almost broke me had instead revealed my greatest strength. And in defending my right to belong, I'd earned a place I never could have imagined. Lady Victoria raised her glass. "To the young woman who reminded us all tonight that true power isn't in excluding others, but in having the courage to lift them up. Welcome to the family, my dear. The real one, where belonging isn't about blood or bank accounts, but about character." The entire hall erupted in applause, and as tears finally flowed down my cheeks, I understood that every moment of doubt, every feeling of not being enough, had led me to exactly where I needed to be. Your moment of humiliation might be your invitation to transformation. Share this story with someone who needs to remember their worth today. Because sometimes, the person trying to make you feel small is actually preparing you for something bigger than you ever imagined. Stand tall. Speak up. You belong exactly where you are.